Hey everybody, hello and good morning and welcome back to the Friday edition of Reaper Pro Tips. Thank God it's Friday. With me, your host, Anne, who got woken up by a puppy too many times last night, and disembodied hands Quindy, who gets woken up by her cat regularly. And we don't know about Justin and John. They haven't complained about sleeping problems, but Justin has a baby, so how are you all? It's Friday, it's Friday, it's Friday. And we're going to pin some wings. Yay, pinning wings. Woohoo. I've got way too much crap sitting out here on my bench again. My bench tends to accumulate crap. I'm sure you all feel, like you get that. So I'm tossing my crap back into the bag it goes in. All right. I don't know. It's mostly Anne. Sleep deprived Anne. Yeah, whoo. It's Anne who definitely is getting a nap later. How about that? Alrighty. But before we do that, we're going to do this. So I wanted to take another look at that one wing I was looking at yesterday that didn't seem like it fit very well. Hello, everybody. Hi, green users. Yes, have fun lurking. I won't call upon you unless I need you. Alrighty. Or unless I say something that's just so wrong that you must correct me, then feel free. Oh, I did miss a little tiny piece of something or other on this wing, though. Tiny little piece of flash or something. A little tiny. There we go. Alright. So I decided I was going to put the wings on. Now however, I'm thinking one thing we need to decide is, are we painting the wings first and then putting them on? I realized that I may have spoken erroneously when I was like, oh, we can just, put these on tomorrow. But we need to ask, as I always ask before such a thing, is if we put these on, is it going to make it a real pain in the butt to paint other things? And essentially, this is going to cover up that dagger. It's going to cover up the hair and make it pretty much impossible to paint. And then this side's not too bad. It covers up the sword hilt. I could probably get behind it. The other side's worse. So yeah, that is an issue for sure. Usually, I would paint the Sophie wings first and then put them on. And again, I do see kind of a problem here in that this wing doesn't really socket in the way it's supposed to. It kind of suggests it's supposed to socket in like this, but I'm coming up against this hair here and it's not working. So always test fit your pieces before you pin. And I am actually going to correct that at least, even if we end up not, even if we end up not attaching the wings after all, I'm going to shave away just a little bit of material on the hair here. Just a tiny bit. And see if I can get it to fit a little bit better. Oop, wrong wing. Wrong wing. Because when I put this in here, I can just see the top part of this is not really fitting. That's a little better. I think yeah, it's still not really snugging in there though. It's closer though, it's much closer. I feel like maybe, I don't really want to shave down the wing because the wing is made to socket into this. Like it kind of feels like it's supposed to be like that. Now I've gotten it. Now it mostly goes in. Oh yeah, it'll stick there, so good. So alright, so just the fact that it'll stick in with so little contact point means that we have actually, you just need to insert it at a certain angle so that yes. Yeah, dry fitting does somewhat prevent despair. Right, Miss Tim. And everybody's got a different process on that. For me, it will bother me if I look like, if I can see her hair at all back here with this other wing on, and I can, then it's going to bother me to just leave that black. So for me, I always painted on Sophie's with End Dragons. I always paint before. I at least put a dark bit, my base on my shadow. Because it's going to be in shadow, right? But that is fair. Like, what's the rule with hard to reach areas, right? Or areas that are flat and on the underside and not filled, like this area right here, is to paint it dark. So if you want to prime it black and do it that way, you certainly can. If it's something, though, like for me, that I can see a little bit of it or that a viewer could see some of, then I tend to very much be the I want to at least base coat it mentality before I put those wings on. That said, we can still drill the holes for the wings and dry fit them. We just won't glue them in. We'll still put the pins in, though. That way we can still do our pinning lesson, and the wings will even like stick on, and we can make sure that everything's cool. I'm going to do the trouble wing first, though. I'm thinking this is definitely the trouble wing, guys. This little wing, oh, it's so, maybe I don't need to pin it, because it only fits if I actually, okay, so the problem with it pinning this wing. You'd think you need to pin it because of the shallow little socket there. But this particular wing only works if it's shoved up this way. So to get it to socket in, I actually have to push it up at an angle. And then it kind of goes into place, which is very clever. And obviously it's held in place, right? And if this is held in place, it's held in place pretty solidly. Look, I'm tapping it and it's not coming out. That's a sign I don't need to pin that. And in fact, pinning it would be almost impossible, because its connection point is like going in at a diagonal, but the socket itself is horizontal. So this would be a very, very bad wing to actually pin. But as long as it's holding itself in like this, like I can, if I hit it from the bottom, that's its weak point. But I can hit it from the top when it's socketed in, and it's fine. So I think that is going to be the wing we do not pin. We will pin this other one, however, because this one just kind of sits in there, as I recall. I'm going to make sure I'm not missing something. Because that last one definitely had to go in at an angle. But this one's an odd... This, again, remember I had to shave that one to actually get it to go in? I feel like... There we go. Okay, so this does also snap in. That's interesting. Look, I can tap it. It's not coming out. So, okay, so this is clever design. Very clever design. But you have to, like, kind of play with it to realize that it does this. So how many of you who put this figure together did realize that these actually are snap-in pieces? That if you put in at a particular angle, they will actually kind of snap in and stay. Did any of you know that? Okay, got it. So you've got the model and you haven't actually done anything with it. Well, that's good then, because now you know. So when you're messing with these, it's going to seem like they don't fit straight in, and they don't. What you want to do, so you can see the bottom part comes out, and it's still very solid. All right, I had to tap it multiple times after I unseated it. So you really do want to mess with this a little bit, and you're going to want to press it in. Definitely go at an angle. You can see where the bottom part is kind of out, and press it in. You should feel it kind of press into place, and then you'll be able to tap it, and it's not going to come off. So what this means is that we actually don't need a pin, which is kind of a bummer, because I kind of wanted to do a pinning lesson today. But dang it, no pinning for us today, because this has been cleverly designed by Bobby Jackson himself, who has been studying the Games Workshop ways of snapping things together. So this does not surprise me. But it'd be cool, like, I kind of feel like if we're going to do this, we should have a little bit of advertising around it, but, because it would have been nice to know. If I hadn't been fussing around with it so much, would I have noticed? Or would I have just trimmed away material that's meant to hold the wing in place, right? Yeah, he is, but like I said, if Reaper's going to start doing this, then we should definitely tell people it's a thing. Although whether, anybody but Bobby even knew is a good question, right? And indeed, I do have to mess with it a bit. Like, I do definitely have to mess around to get it to go in, especially this one side. There we go. All right, so there we are. Fits very nice behind there. Yeah, I agree, Miss Stimpa. They're very clever. They put a lot of work into figuring out how to put things together. So these will snap in without glue. And because they will hold very firm, you can tap it with a finger and they won't come out. They do not need to be pinned. They can be painted separately and then popped on and glued on. So that's pretty cool. It also does let us look at places that might be hard to reach. So the places that might be hard to reach on this model, let's use Julie's awesome sculpting tools because we have a nice little probe thing. So back here behind the hair, you can still see this area if you're looking, and all of this bag back here. But getting at it when there's a wing in the way is going to be really difficult. So all of this stuff back here, yeah, see, I did slice away a little bit of material, remember, and that means that this wing is not as solid as the other. And then on this side, it's just going to be pretty much the sword and that little bit of hair that are kind of not working so well. There. So, okay, here, actually, yeah, there's that area between the hair and the sword hilt on the side here that's going to be very hard to get to if you put the wing on. You can do it, but you can still see it clearly. And, yes, this does make it very easy to do a zenith on her because you don't have to glue anything in. You can just pop them in primer and pop them out and paint everything separately if you want to do, for example, like I do, I tend to like to do a little more detail on the wings with Sophie's. So, yeah. So this is, yeah, for those who just came in, we've discovered that these wings are kind of snap-in. They're really shallow snap-in, but they do work. So you can just snap them in without gluing if you want to prime. Although do be aware that when you are priming, the primer is going to stick the wings in. It's not going to stick them in like super, but like if you get some primer pooling in here, which you will if you're doing, you know, like black primer and then you're doing like some white, the black will probably get in the cracks, right? So that is going to glue the wings in. You can certainly easily pull them out still, but it is going to add a layer of goop. So I might prime the wings real thin separately and then do it that way. Then prime the wings black, prime the Sophie black, and then pop the wings in and do the white. That's probably what I would do. No, Pendrake, we were talking, I mentioned yesterday on the stream that I was going to do a pinning lesson today, but what we have discovered in the first few minutes of this stream is that these are actually snap-on wings. Ta-da. They actually do seat into these sockets where it appeared that they were really shallow. They actually have a way that if you tilt them and kind of like work with them, you can press them in and they will simply go in. So they essentially, it isn't like you could, like, if you tried to game with this model without gluing them in, then yeah, you'd lose wings, but it is easy. It's going to, what it does is essentially creates extra surface and tension for the glue to work, so we actually do not need to pin them. So essentially I've discovered that I do not need to pin this model, so a pinning lesson is off. Oops. But yeah, so she's really nice. She's got a lot of interesting little areas for NMM. I would not do this model in metallics because of all the very small plates. You'd lose a lot of the detail. It wouldn't be clear. Whereas if you do NMM, you can bring out all of these cute little metal details on her armor with a lot more clarity than you could doing metal. She also has very fine chainmail, as you can see. If you put metallic on that, it's just going to disappear. You aren't going to be able to see any of the texture. Yeah, you can do a wash and that'll help, but you could make it look a lot better with NMM. So yeah, that's a thing when you've got also these tiny little metal details or beaded details on her pouch. Probably metal, but yeah, probably want to do them in metallic and NMM. So there's like a lot of fine detail here with the metal that makes me think it's definitely an NMM piece. In some ways, it's got some easier areas to do in that the arm guards here are segmented. You see that line? That automatically sets you up for NMM. You can even see it. See, you've got a highlight. The brightest highlight is on the edges. See? And look, there's a tiny shadow underneath that line. Do you see it? And here, down here, this is reflected light. So you can see that that is a tiny, tiny little, it's not very dark because this is plastic and not metal, if this was a pewter figure, you'd be able to see a darker shadow. But on these tiny little areas, because these models aren't big enough to cast a real shadow, that's another reason you're not seeing a super dark shadow underneath this angle. But this right here, boom, this illustrates NMM for you. So like if you took a picture with this lighting, you would be able to see all of like the shadows and stuff. You'd be able to at least have a small guide toward, you know, what you wanted to paint with NMM. So yeah, just saying, super easy. Take some pictures. Not as good on here because this is more smooth, but you can see the knee. It's telling us exactly how to highlight it. It's telling us to put a light down the middle and light, reflected light on the bottom, and then look at it. Look at that shadow. And then if I put something down here to reflect the light, we'd also get an under reflection. But I don't think I've got anything small enough. And again, remember that with these, doing this sort of thing, taking a picture under a light source, only will give you so much because the model's too small to cast natural shadows and gain natural highlights. So like I could put something brightly colored underneath this knee, but because the model is tiny, it won't show you an under reflection like it would if it was a big model. It'll just have that entire shadow wash out. So see, it washes it out. You can still see the under the color lights up that under reflection. See how that comes up? But again, this isn't a big enough model to cast a shadow. This is really a thing. This is why we accentuate 28mm models, is they're not big enough to cast natural shadows, and the highlights tend to be very broad on them. More broad that, like this shoulder highlight is much more broad than it would be on armor plate on a bust, for example. Yeah, she'd make a good like level 3 to 8 like warrior, probably. Fancy armor, but not epic armor. Or you could make her a paladin. Although she doesn't have any like obvious holy symbols, you'd have to put one on her little loincloth. But yeah, she could be a paladin. So yeah, interesting model. Going to be interesting to paint. Also, she's got enough cloth bits that's going to be interesting to paint. Because we not only have a breastplate, we have a tiny little cloth tabard going down the front. So we'll have some accent color opportunities there. Yeah. I haven't painted a Sophie for over a decade. I used to paint all of them, and I got thoroughly burned out on them. So this will be my return to the Sophie arena, guys. All right, so yes, these wings pop in and out. Ta-da! So now we know. We don't have to pin them. Yay, no pinning. Well, that means we have to do basing on our Ghostwalker. Oops. All right. That's all right, Sophie. We also could experiment with doing a little base on getting our Sophie on a base like early. Like actually sculpting it in. These two have almost... they have very similar base techniques. Bobby was obviously like... he obviously has a cobblestone stamp thing going on, and he's using it. Which, you know, is better than broccoli, so I'm not complaining. Cobblestone stamp. Better than broccoli, TM. So, alright, so let's take our little girl. I actually got 2 bases out just in case. Maybe we should think about doing 2 different things here. So let me think a moment. Brainstorm a little bit. With your all assistance. So obviously one of these I'm probably going to keep all cobblestone, right? I'm going to show you how to do the cobblestone texture to fill in one of these bases, right? But what would we like to do on the other? Is there a different thing we would like to do with the basing on the other one? Like a way to kind of adapt this cobblestone or surround it with something different? Or create something different out of it? Any ideas? Meanwhile, I've got a mold line here on the base, so I'm going to try to get that out of there. Probably on something like this, though, because to show you, it's recessed. It goes down into this crack. This is a situation where I would put green stuff in here, especially if I'm going to be already green stuffing the base, rather than trying to take that recessed mold line out, which would be a pain in the butt and probably would just really be rough if you could even get it. I would just green stuff over the top of it, hide it that way. There are definitely mold lines that are much easier to take care of that way. If you're at all comfortable with green, or any other putty is also easy to fill in at this point. I mean, there's not an official palette for Shadow Raven. I know the colors that I used to use for her, but Rhonda uses different ones. I very much always made her auburn-haired, whereas Rhonda makes her more of a redhead, which I think is what Talon's more recent art has shifted her toward anyway, but I always liked the auburn, so I always liked her with slightly darker hair. And then typically she's in like red, black, and gold, but Reaper's colors, red and black. But I might change that up as well. Well, that would be a total like cut off the base. I was more thinking about how do we take this and turn it into something else. I guess we could introduce, we could maybe make this a step and do a wooden floor. I'm trying to like figure out how not to have to cut her off her base and put her on something completely different. Obviously, I could do anything at that point. But yeah, maybe. But I would definitely have to cut her off. And with the fine detail here, I don't know if I'd want to try to do that. Maybe, maybe, maybe. I'll think about it while I do. Yeah, I don't like to cut figures off their bases with its Bones USA. It can be easy to snap those ankles. So really cutoffs are my last resort. I always try to do something different. If I have to sculpt completely over the base and hide it, I'll do that. But with something like Tavern Floor, you really can't do that on a base like this because the texture's so high. So when you're trying to do your new texture, it's essentially going to raise it above the level of the feet, and it's not going to look good. So if I were going to completely cut her off and try to do it without hurting her, I'd do the outside parts. I'd do a wedge out of either side so I can avoid putting strain between the ankles, and then I would leave like pillars of plastic material attached to the bottom of her feet and just use that to build up the new base. Yeah, I'm not sure. Stairs are hard because we're going to work with a very small base. So stairs always sound cool until you try to fit them on a base, and then you realize how much freaking room they take up. But this is why I do stairs. I do stairs pretty often, or steps, or a raised elevated area, right? With like our kitty cat, we did that. We did stairs. But it tends to look much better on a larger base, and I didn't really want to overbase because I'm already doing that kitty cat diorama, and I'm getting enough basing foo out of that. Let me think about it. We could actually, the Broken Road idea has some merit, Arrowiz, because what we can do, and maybe we'll do this, is we can take the cobblestones that we have, and we can essentially knit them together with some green stuff to make bigger paving stones, more like you would see on a road. We could just fill them in a little bit and leave a lot of the texture and leave some of the lumpiness of it. We could try to do that and put her onto something that's more like cracked stone and not little cobbles. And that'd be something we haven't done yet on here. So yeah, we can try that. Yeah, but people who game don't want them tabbed, Dogfather. Like this is why the Warlord models, I mean, don't sell as well as Dark Heaven. That was something Reaper discovered, and Ed will tell you about it. Way early back in the day, it became very evident that people for D&D really wanted a model with an integral base. And since D&D players are the majority of Reaper's market, Ed went into that. And Warlord, because it was meant to be a war game, he went separate. He chose to go separate from it with that line, but people tend not to buy those models, even though they're perfectly good D&D models and role-playing game models. A lot of people tend not to buy them because they look at it. I mean, they'd come into the store and they'd be like, oh, that one's not attached to the base. I don't want to have to bother with glue, right? So it's definitely a thing. Those of us who like know how to handle that stuff and like to customize absolutely would always rather have the tab. But there's a huge portion of the market that keeps Reaper alive that unfortunately does not. But yeah, so with these though, that's how you deal with it. And it's not like it's hard. Like the biggest thing with these, honestly, and this is the hardest one to do. Ghostwalker Lady, you need to worry about that also. Look at that toe connection. It's gonna wanna snap. So the easiest, I mean, it's just you've got to go at it gradually. You've got to trim off the sides, trim a wedge out of it, trim another wedge, and then you should be able to snip the center of that base without like breaking anything. So you can do it. You just have to, it's a little more work, right? It's a little more work and care and time and trying to really look at what you're doing and make sure you're not putting too much strain on the model, because you'll see those legs start to bend if you're putting a lot of strain with a side cutter on this. All right, so that's yeah, that idea of kind of making our stones a little bigger. I like that idea. This one will be filling in cobblestone, but we need a sticky note because we have to fill in our little slotted bases. And what do we do with that? We do tape or sticky notes, and sticky notes is what I've got. I like using sticky notes actually better than tape because it's easier to cut through the paper than through masking tape. So stick your sticky note down over the slotted base. Rub it in so you can see the edge of the base. Take your happy knife, which hopefully is sharp enough to cut paper without a big problem, and cut pretty much all around where you want it. And it comes right off. Oh, and get that back part as well. And then we can use the other half of the sticky note for our other base. This is the easiest way to fill in a slot base, by the way. Don't bother puttying in. Man, I remember when people puttied stuff in, and when I kind of flashed onto this idea, I was just like, oh my god, finally. No more slot. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, you're right, it can be a generational thing as well. But, I mean, I started way back in around 1981, and back then there were miniatures, you know, like Grenadier was out there, Partha was out there, a couple other, like, old companies that aren't around were out there, and they had integral bases. I remember my first models, definitely, my first Grenadier box set of Dungeon Explorers, or Dungeon Adventurers, can't remember, definitely had integral bases. And when I first encountered bases that were not integral, I was like, why? Right? But I was much younger in the hobby then. And when you start out, you have that thought. You're like, well, why? If you started out with integral bases, you're like, why would you ever not want an integral base? And it's only when you get, if you stay with the hobby and then you become like more like where you like to paint as much as you like to game or more than, that's where you start like, and where you start getting creative, right? Where you're like, I want to really change this. That's when you've got your, there we go, 2 happy little bases. That's when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I really want an non-integral base. But I am happy that we've moved to plastic or resin, because that makes removing a base so much freaking easier than it was when it was metal. Heh. Yeah. Rub it in that I'm old. Sure. Be that way, young whippersnapper. Hey, HM Road Dog. 35 months, almost to song. Almost. December. You'll be a Decemberist. You'll have your song in December, assuming you sub on my show. They're not going to sing for you on Reaper Live, man. It's only here. Alrighty. Oh, lead was okay. So lead wasn't bad as far as removing the bases, but it was terrible about the ankles snapping when you did. So let's just be clear. Lead was not a dream material for miniatures. Fewer mold lines, but oh, it's so fragile. I'm still kind of heartbroken over a beautiful Rackham Confrontation horse that completely snapped at the ankles after just the smallest of tumbles onto my desk, just because lead. Yeah. Hey, Kaz. 43 months. Kaz trying to one-up everybody else. That's insane. We've almost done 4 years. 4 years? This is insane. This is crazy talk. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very. Yeah, that's the nice thing about the tin now, is if you do drop it on a softer floor, you won't get the density. Like, you won't lose the nose, right? or the tip of the hood won't totally bend and smash. But yeah. All right, so we've got our bases. Let us glue down our happy little Ghostwalker lady. We'll put her on this one. And super glue will be fine on the paper. Yeah, it's a quadruple subversary, like that. I'm going to have to go a little slower. A little slower when I'm singing that one, get it straight. So usually position a model slightly to the rear on the base. I kind of center it a little, but slightly back. That way if you want to add details, oh no, no Anne, you must let it set first. You cannot just pick it up. That way if you want to add details, you've got room in the foreground to add details. Did you must have like just stepped out and came back, Pendrick. Did you not just watch me put sticky notes on? You must have been out. Yes, sticky notes to block the slot bases so that we do not have to worry about the slot. That's okay. Spelling and you today are not getting along. You can just, I'm not going to grammar Nazi you. It's fine. I'm not having enough sleep to, I haven't had enough sleep to grammar Nazi anybody today. We went out, I blame the puppy and spicy soup. We went out to, well, I guess it would be Chinese. Because it wasn't pho. It was Chinese. It was a Chinese noodle place. And it was tasty, but it was spicy. And it definitely, I did not sleep that great. Spicy doesn't set off my gut issues, but it definitely, like, does other things. All right. Are you on? Are you on? She's still gluing. I might add a little extra. Since the paper does absorb the glue, you can definitely add a little bit of extra around the edges. But it will absorb, and the glue will soak through the paper and hit the base as well, so gluing the paper to the base. Little mini. Okay, while we have little mini there, we're going to mix up some green. And I did not use all of my green yesterday. I have lots of little balls of green rolling around. I used to cut these into mushrooms. So that's one thing you can do with your leftover green stuff. I often turn it into rocks, but you can also, if you get a ball of green stuff, you can cut it in half. And then when you've cut it in half, each side is the top of a mushroom. So you can just put a little pin into the bottom of the mushroom. And if you want to do some additional sculpting, you can. And yeah, you'll have little tiny mushrooms. No, I did not feed the puppy Chinese soup, spicy fried Chinese soup, because I have heard the horror stories that friends who have fed their dogs very spicy or garlicky food, Asian food, have had afterwards. And let us just say, epic flatulence. I'd leave it there. I know better. It was a very advanced hot and sour soup, Shadow Raven. It was hot and sour though. It was but it was like if you took like the traditional like noodle soup with all the pickled radish and cabbage and, you know, egg and stuff that you would find in like ramen, but you put it in the soup base itself was hot and sour, which hot or sour and spicy. Sour and spicy is what they called it. So it was a different thing. It was a Mifen soup place, M-I-F-E-N. And it was highly rated by one of David's Chinese coworkers. And indeed, when we walked in and sat down, it was a little hole in the wall place. We were the only white people there, the only non-Asian people there. But it was super tasty. Alrighty. Oh, I've got a little piece of particle on there. There we go. All right. Aha! Haha! We may now begin green stuffing. All right, let us back out. Too close! There we are. So we are on a base. We have a choice. I usually will do a slight curve and kind of curve the cobblestones a little bit down to the plastic base if I can. Sometimes on the edges you're going to just have it be a little bit higher, in which case you just paint it black just like everything else. We'll see what I can do to kind of blend it in. You can also just sculpt cobblestones and just have them kind of at the edge there, as if there are more cobblestones extending, it just doesn't fit onto the base. So you can do all of that. And you could put tiny mushrooms on it, but we're not going to this time. Tiny mushrooms, go live somewhere else, tiny mushrooms. There. All right, green stuff time. Yeah, we decided to try the new restaurant last night. We decided to leave the puppy with her critical role and abandon her while we went out to eat. She's old enough for us to do that now, which is nice. Oh, I have a new Kiki picture. Hold on. New Kiki picture. Oh, she heard me say her name. I shouldn't have said that. Let's see. Oh, also I saw raccoons on my walk the other night. We have all sorts of wildlife in our neighborhood. All right, so this picture is slightly blurry because she just jumped at me a second afterwards, but it's a cute Kiki. So here we go. Let's back up. There's the Keekster as of yesterday. That's where she is now. That's what she looks like. Yep, there she is. She's getting big. You can see she's getting very, very dark also. She's keeping her caramel color on her mane, though. So, like, her body's turning black, but her paws are caramel colored, and her mane and her floof around her ears are caramel colored. Yes, her ears have been standing for a while. I mean, she still does teepee ears a little bit, but for the most part, they're like upright. You can see that one kind of leans in a little bit here or there. But yeah, and the ears will shrink as she gets bigger. So there's the Keekster. Yep. Yeah, and then her underside is dark. Yeah, she's going to be a caramel and dark chocolate. There we go. Had to get the... Oh, we're getting a bath this weekend. I think we might take her to the local dog bathing place. Because there is one just down the road. So I was like, maybe we'll try that. Yeah, she's got very crinkly fur right now because her adult coat is coming in, and the puppy coat is pretty much all out at this point. So she's got shorter, softer fur on her sides, but her top coat is very, very harsh and crinkly right now. All right, we'll see how much we can do. We might need to get more green stuff. Yeah, it's true. I kneel, but yeah, it would be. Yeah, this was a really high-class hot and sour soup. It was definitely loads above your average hot and sour soup. It was interesting too because David got the traditional beef mi-fen and I got the beef mi-fen with the spicy sour, and it was definitely a different broth. All right, so this will take up quite a bit of green stuff, and we will probably need to make more. Oh, funny, miss him. Yeah, the dual coloring, like most traditional GSDs have, they're born black, almost completely black. You usually only see a little bit of color under the tail and sometimes on the toes when they're born. And then they, as you say, the black stays the same size and the rest of the dog grows. Unless it's a bicolor, or like Kiri, Dark Dual, where it gets a blanket instead of a saddle. Oh no, the water did not adhere. There. The water was mostly on the other side of my sculpting tool. So I've got a nice big puddle of water on top of that. And I'm going to take this green stuff and I'm push it right up. And I'm going to press it down so I can gently slope it, as I mentioned. So we're here. Yeah, I do like hot and sour soup a lot. So that's why I ordered it. I kind of perked up when I saw it on the menu. All right, so if we look, the cobblestones are a little bit regular, right? It's like you've got two together, like two together, but then they're offset a bit as well. So since there's two together there, I probably need to actually offset that. And I'm going to close that little dent I made. So I probably want to make something like a cobblestone right off of this one then. And make this off center. And go that way. Okay, you can kind of grid it in with the side of your sculpting tool. I'm going to make this this one slightly bigger. You want to make them different sizes as well if you can. I think I'm going to go down here and make this one big. And I think I'm going to extend this one a little bit. So I'm going to make this little stone a little bit bigger by giving it a little bit more area and pushing the green up over the top to blend it in. And there is also a fair amount of space between the stones in here, so we will want to push them apart also as we go. So let's do that. And let's do one right here, do a smaller one, smaller. We just want to kind of keep them kind of irregular, and we're just going to put a little stitching. We're kind of making a connect the dots down here. You thought he would be a bicolor? Yeah, he stayed darker longer. Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Kiki, I thought she was going to be very dark from the beginning. Nobody believed me because when she was a pupper, she didn't have the signals, right? But she did have the little black tips on her toes. Here's Kiki as a, hold on. One second. I have a young Kiki that David just sent me recently. Where's my young Kiki? Aw. I hope I didn't delete the young Kiki. Dang it. Oh, maybe I didn't save it. Well, that's going to change. There we go. So this is baby Keekers. Baby Keekers. There's the baby. Okay, so baby Keekers is very light colored, but baby Keekers always had a black belly, and she also had very dark toes. So in our breed anyway, for sables, that's a sign. If you got a black belly and really dark toes, that's a sign that you're going to really sable out as you get older. I want to save this picture. Save picture. Save photo. There we go. Now I have a baby. There we go. Baby Keeker is now in my photos. But yeah, that's the baby Keeker. There we go. And then, yeah, then when they get older, now that she is older, you can still see she has black marks on the tips of her feet. See the black marks? We call those tiger toes. And then she's also got these long stripes. So she might actually be either a black sable or a bicolored sable by the time she's finished. No idea. All right, I'm going to fill in more. Pretty much anywhere that I have, I haven't filled in, I'm just going to put the end of a brick. All right, so now, so if you just put essentially that at the end of the putty is the end of the brick, then you can just start a new section of bricks as you move onward. I think I might want to put this up here though. There. Because you will definitely see places where like Bobby started to do a little brick and then he just ended at the side of the base. So I can push my putty up over that little brick and blend it in so that it looks like now there's a bigger brick. Okay, so we've got all those cuts. Now we need to widen out those spaces. And actually, one of these Julie tools that we were using yesterday, it's really good for that. I think using the back side of our little hook tool here will allow me to push down and widen the space between the little bricks. Very nicely. Actually better than any of my other tools would do. So this has, pushing down like this with this tool has a couple of different effects. For one thing, it's going to flatten out that space between the bricks, so that's nice. But for another, it's also pushing up the edges on either side, right? So that's going to make kind of the edges of the stone rise up and square off, which is great. That's exactly what we want. And I've still got a lot of water on this surface, so I can just work with this tool without adding any more water. I used to love creamed corn when I was a kid, but it's just because it was sweet. Trying to cut down on sugar in my diet. I still have a couple of sugary things that I like. And I'm not going to drop it completely, but too much evidence out there that sugar is not a good thing for you as you get older. So I'm trying to cut back even more than I was. Which is hard because sugar is addictive, of course. And we all know. I was actually listening to some research on that just the other night. Studies that they did. They actually pitted a head-to-head sugar versus fat, because some people will tell you that fat and salt are addictive. But they actually have proved in research studies that salt and fat just make food taste better, and sugar is the real food addictor. Alrighty, so we're getting pretty nice actually on this side now. We haven't put the texture on yet, and thanks to Julie, we now have the means to put the texture on. Woo! We won't be doing it, via digital like Bobby did. We'll be doing it with a stamp. I assume you use the creamed corn because it's a thickener, Twisted Oma? So this is coming actually really, really well. I like it. Well, I'm doing a little bit. He's got more square stones, and I've got some very irregular stones here, so I do want to kind of make sure that I'm sticking more to square in some places. Although he does have some more rounded ones as well, so my stones are going to fit in pretty well. I assume you use the creamed corn because it's a thickener, Twisted Oma. In that case, since hot and sour soup typically does have some body to it. All right, so we've got this, and we've still got some water on the surface here, so I'm going to use this texture stamp to try to texture these little guys. Just a little bit. I'm going to press them down a little bit, so I might need to go back and you can see the rough texture, though. Coming up. Yeah, this is actually a perfect match for Bobby's cobblestones. So I'm going to make sure I've got even the edges, the edge guys textured. There we are. And as Julie mentioned, this is like a safety walk. It's a shoe thing to keep to make your shoes more secure. So it's something put out by 3M, and it's an adhesive thing, but you just cut off a little thing and you can use it as a stamp. You could also use sandpaper, like really coarse sandpaper probably. A wild Zambies appears? Oh, hey! What's up? And no time for both. Thank you for the resub at 38. Sorry, I was talking and I wasn't... Yeah, sugar does. It actually, there are studies out there, Miss Imp, that sugar does. There's some evidence to that. The sugar makes arthritis worse. Even if you don't have arthritis yet, it can make your knees start aching and inflaming. I mean, I know somebody personally with that problem. And Bridget, who got me started on keto and low carb, she actually went on keto and cut out sugar because she was having inflammation in her joints of her fingers. And she's young. She's 10 years younger than I am. But yeah. Dinner roll cobblestone bases. Well, you could do that too. I mean, if you didn't want to texture it, you could leave them as dinner rolls. It's cute, right? But you know what? You could cut back a little bit, Miss Dimp, and it probably would help, you know. Like, I don't cut it out. I still have chocolate. But I try to just kind of not go crazy with the sugar. Which is easier for some people than for others, actually. I was reading some stuff on that as well, like along with the willpower stuff. But you can be more, just like any addictive substance, there are personality traits and stuff that there are people who are more susceptible to sugar addiction and less. Which I didn't know about. I thought if sugar was addictive, but then apparently there really is something such as a addictive personality, and people have problems. Yeah, I think we all could benefit. You think you want more sugar than you eat. Yeah. It can do that. It actually changes your brain chemistry if you have too much sugar. I did not know that. That was alarming. I was like, uh-oh. It's a good thing I don't eat a ton of it. And flour has much the same effect. Anything that raises your blood sugar a lot and consistently. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Interesting research. Of course, any research is always open to like being changed and turned on its head 10 years from now, right? When somebody does a new study. So you always have to keep up on these things if you're interested in them. But I always find it very interesting. I have definitely modulated parts of my eating over the years in response to like just research on various things, and generally been happier for it. All right, so now we're adding in more cobblestones over here. Oh, interesting, Walking Harder. So your body is just telling you like, no. That's good. I mean, that's your body telling you no. You should listen. I also will get that way. If I eat too much chocolate, I'll just start feeling sick. I've noticed that recently. It's led me to curb my chocolate intake, which is probably just good for my waistline in general, as well as my blood sugar. All right, let's get this there's a little stone there. I'm going to put a little bit of a rounder stone here. Again, we're going to just connect the dots here. I'm missing a little tiny bit, but I can leave that gap and just paint it. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. Huh. Yeah, that's funny. Well, I guess that, you know, shortcuts are shortcuts. Like, if it works, it works. I think I want to go across on this one and go smaller. So as you can see, yeah, and I've never been a big pastivore, so I found it very easy to drop that completely off my diet. Pasta, yeah, but white flour can be addictive too, which includes, of course, pasta. But yeah, you know, when it all comes down to it, the best diet is the one that you can sustain. So if you have a hard time cutting out something like pasta, see if you can cut out more carbs elsewhere, or eat a little less of it, or don't eat it as often. There's lots of ways to modify your diet without like having to give up stuff, is what I've learned over the years. Although some people, the other thing I learned is that some people actually like hardcore addict and cannot, like, have to quit cold turkey. They cannot do cheat days. They cannot, actually, they have to make a hardcore change to their diet or they're not going to stick. I didn't realize that there were people like that, but there are, and I'm kind of glad I'm not one of them. I've always been able to do kind of soft modulation on my diet. Still have the things that I like, but to have them in much smaller quantities or much less often. So I'm grateful for that. Oh. Yeah. Couldn't resist, huh? Yeah, I mean, there were times, like when I first went to keto, I did have to actually remove all carby food from the house. But once I got used to it, once I acclimated to it, it was easier. Although I will still, like, if we have leftover candy bars from Halloween, I will still be sorely tempted by them just because of, like, childhood, like, nostalgia memory things. It's not like they're very good, although Snickers are tasty. I will admit it. But yeah, there are people who just, and it's not that they're like, it's not that they don't have any negative personality traits. It's just a physiological, cannot resist the thing they're addicted to. Like, have to just not have the temptation. So don't think less of yourself if you have a hard time resisting some of this stuff. It's probably not you, it's probably your brain. But it means you might have to, you know, work on different tactics, right? All right, so we've got our gridded out, and I've managed to curve it. Kind of curves with the same kind of curve that this does, so they kind of match. So I feel like that's okay. Oh, that's too bad, Twisted Dome. I'm sorry about that. That's hard. Hospitals are hard. Yeah, not everybody. Yeah, I mean, pain is a great motivator for me, but it isn't for everybody. You're right, Miss Nimp. Or if it is, like I said, it's not always that they're making a conscious decision. Your brain can be wired to be addicted to that stuff, and then it's not even like you can control it. Like, you can try to override with your conscious mind, but it doesn't work, or it doesn't work for long. So yeah, all the feels to your hubby, actually, because that's really hard. It's really hard to, like, figure out how to life hack yourself out of that. There we go. So, a little soft. Not always, Grey Wolf. Not always. Because the other thing to remember is that our brains get, like, set in patterns, right? Behavior that we did in the past that we really enjoyed is still a thing. Like, it's still set into our psyche. So even though now that behavior would really hurt, the behavior loop is still there. Which is the alarming thing about behavior, by the way. The alarming thing about habits and bad habits. Yeah. Yeah. You just can't resist. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And cravings are a part of it too, right? Walking harder. Exactly. And apparently some people are more susceptible to cravings. Like it's very interesting. I've been reading a lot of this stuff lately. I'm very glad that I kind of took an assessment and I'm right in the middle. Like I'm not skinny, right? But I'm also like, I am at the point where I can, I have some mostly healthy habits. I've never really been a binge eater, though I definitely do have moments where I stress eat. But I don't stress eat like I don't eat a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's, right? That's not my stress eat. My stress eat is, oh no, I just ate half a bar of chocolate instead of just 2 squares. So I have like modulated stress eating, I guess. It still like keeps me overweight, but it's not crazy. It's not excessive, and I'm really thankful for that. I'm really thankful because I worried for a while that I did have an addictive personality. Because like World of Warcraft, I lost 10 years to World of Warcraft. But what I have found over the years is that I only have an addictive personality when I'm unhappy. If I'm actually happy with my life, then I have like the ability to like control it. Like it's not overwhelming. But there have definitely been times in my life where I've been very unhappy and very susceptible to that sort of thing. So just learning how your brain works over time, I guess, is the biggest way to get through stuff, huh? All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of a flat spoon tool, make sure that I am lining up and kind of smooshing my green stuff into these cobblestones so they blend in. You can also use the tip of this tool to kind of like pull the cobblestones apart. This is just a spoon, a smaller spoon. Yeah, because they crafted it to be addictive, right? I am looking forward to the new expansion because I found that I've broken the addiction. Like there is always a point now with World of Warcraft where I can play it for a few weeks and be, just in the evenings and be pretty happy. But there always comes a time when I look at WoW or any computer game and go, I could be making something that is actually cool and has like real value and that I can, actually physically touch like miniatures, And that will always enter my brain's dialogue at some point, assuming I am happy, assuming I'm in a place where I'm happy, which I am now. But yeah, then I'll stop. Essentially, I'll be like, oh, I would be much happier if I was painting miniatures right now instead of, endlessly questing after digital items that I can't even touch. I think that's what broke it for me, was just the cutoff between reality and virtual. Oh, wow, that's so hard, Miss Imp, for you. Like, that's insane. Like, I wouldn't have any energy to cook either. I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. Like, all your energy pennies must be thoroughly exhausted at the end of the day. Mine would be. All right, so we've got some good cobblestone action going on here, guys, and I'm trying hard. Essentially, I'm trying to either spread the green over the outer level of cobblestones, or I'm trying to like make the cutoff right there if it makes sense, right? So like there, it makes sense to have a cutoff right there, and then just continue the texture. So, and then I'm just building additional sections of cobblestones on at the edge of every section. And at the end of this, we will have a nice cobblestone base that looks like it's integral, that fits into this space. Oh, you like where you work, so it's worth it. Yeah, but that's so hard. It's so hard because it sucks your energy out. Do you listen to audiobooks when you commute, since you have such a long commute, or do you listen to music? I know with long road trips, I really like listening to nonfiction audiobooks. But you could get in your fiction dose too if you have that much time on the road. blend this one in a little bit better. There. All right. I want to spread this one a little bit more in too. Got to just integrate it a little bit better. There we go. Audiobooks and radio Margaritaville. Cool. Yeah, I used to like having a small commute. Like I like if I had to choose, I like a 20-minute work commute. I found that it got me it kind of let me get my brain into the mode, you know, of working, and it gave me some me time to relax and listen to music or whatever, and I always kind of liked a small commute. When I was 5 minutes away from work, that was too close. It wasn't enough of a commute for me to get my brain into work mode. All right, grab this. But yeah, I'd have to really like my job too. You're right. It's for that kind of a commute. Oop. Trying to get my my worm of green stuff in the appropriate place here, so that I have enough material. I think I need to actually make that a little bit thicker. So I was trying to fit the shape here. So I'm going to kind of smush this one in right up against the other one, and I'm going to make a new layer of rock. And this this stone is already suggesting itself. Now there's a little tiny stone here, and I could really choose to build this up onto it if I wanted to. Push my little rock here slightly to the side, and that's the nice thing about doing this all at once, is that you can kind of shove stones around. That's really cool, Miss Dimp. Yeah, you're right. If you really love your job, I would totally see how you would do that commute. And then I've got a tiny little stone here. This is more of a cornerstone. I think I'm going to make two little stones here. And then this little stone here. This has to kind of curve down. I need a little bit to fill in my little hole here. Yeah, you have a very limited diet, as I recall, Twisted Oma. That makes it hard. If I'm remembering correctly what you said before. If you can eat avocado, avocado is a high calorie and tasty. And good for you. Vitamin E. Yay. Oh, interesting. Hypoglycemia. Yeah. So just a little bit of green, and you can just push it into that little bit, and then just blend it in. The key thing with green is just keeping enough water on your tool and kind of going slow. Don't be in a hurry. It's very zen, actually. I enjoy doing green work and basing work because I find both to be pretty darn zen. You can kind of get in the zone and just kind of go, just kind of like when you're painting and you get in the zone. Basing is like that for me. Trying to figure out what shape that rock is there. It looks like it was a couple of rocks, but now I don't know. Oh well. We'll just create an extra rock here. And we'll do a couple little rocks down there. Little rocks. Today I remembered to take the puppy's water up and also leave her critical role, so hopefully that will help. I'm going to do 2 bigger stones here because it's faster. If you do want to go faster, just do bigger stones. And do be careful as you're moving around because your fingers are going to be tempted to go over the base to hold onto it, and you can smoosh and fingerprint some of the stuff that you've already done. So you have to be careful. At this point, actually, it's probably better if I put the base on a sticky tack. If I can squish it down enough, it'll be enough to hold it in place and it'll stop me from being tempted to touch it. And we're going to push apart some of these little rocks a bit. Then we'll do our texture. I want to soften some of these corners too. You can use the end of a pokey tool to kind of, if you see a sharp corner and you want to soften it, you can kind of poke it down so that it looks more gently rounded, like it's worn. That's why I like, it's like I notice when my finger's getting close and I'm like, oh no, it's gonna be fingerprint time if I don't do something. I used to always have fingerprints in my Sculpey bases. It was so hard. All right, so now I'm gonna texture our rocks, texture, except I think I need a little bit more water on here actually, so I'm gonna actually, maybe I'll dip this in the water. That should get a little water on it. Uh-oh. We all know what that is. I thought about maybe having her in here. She might be old enough and well behaved enough now to have in the pen here, but I'm certain she would just jump up and be all dingoey, so we might just have to wait to have a Kiki in the room here until she is older. I lost a little bit of my space between the cobblestones there. When you do a texture, if your stones are already pretty flat, you sometimes will lose definition, so you do have to go back in and press down a little bit. But since you already have the texture on the stones, you don't have to worry too much. Now, Bobby's left a little bit more space between a lot of his stones, and I can certainly try to widen out some of these, although when you're on the sides here, That's where it gets really hard because you have limited space and you're trying to, like, you know, create this illusion of stones. So here I'm not going to sweat it very much. But where I've got more room here, I could come in and press down a little bit and sculpt a little bit more space between some of these rocks to make it be more like what Bobby's got up here. So I can press down a little bit more of this stone, for example. And a little bit more over here. Just to put a little bit more space, you see, between those stones. And if I just do that a couple places on the base here, it'll be enough for it to suggest that it's, you know, it's all the same sort of thing. Especially if you pay attention to the front and the back, those are the prime viewing angles for this model, is here, here, and here. So if you keep it pretty well in line on the viewing angles that you're working with. So if you can see that there are bigger spaces in the sculpted stone from these angles, then that helps make it look as if that's all just part of a base that's been there all along. So I'm going to add in a deeper cut here. Boom. And let's see what time is it. Oh, actually, Puppy's kind of on time. Time flies when you're doing awesome cobblestone green work. Boom. There we are. All right. So we've gotten actually almost all of it. Like, we just have a little bit more to do, which maybe I'll finish out. We'll see if I have time one of the evenings coming up before the next stream. Yeah. Yeah, medication. Yep. Yeah. I'm lucky not to be on medications right now because my diet, I was able to control my condition with diet, but I'm always kind of dreading for if that changes. So all the sympathy to you guys. All right. Yeah, so we have cobblestones. They're cute. Cute little cobblestones. Yay! So that is how you would do a cobblestone base, folks. If you wanted to just make one in general, or you wanted to make one that blends in with some of these cobblestone bases that we're seeing in Bones USA. Dungeon stone bases. Yep. And then on this one, yeah, we'll maybe we'll try to knit together some of this and make it more flagstone-y, and see what we can do to make it more just kind of, I don't know, interesting, to change it up, right? So we have a baby rust monster. Like, I feel like Sophie really needs to be looking down at a cute little baby monster that's her friend and companion. And I feel like it could be a baby rust monster. I mean, she has it trained very well. Or she's giving it a look like you are about to be mischievous and you are not permitted to dissolve my armor. Like, I think we need that. We need that, right? Yeah. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, we are. I will be on tomorrow on my own stream. I don't know what we'll work on. We'll either work on Egyptian Dude or we'll go back to Priestess. I was doing freehand on back of her for some of my Patreon stuff. I might be in the mood to do some NMM on her. And when the mood takes me, when it's that complex of NMM, like, I have to capitalize on it. So, yeah, maybe we'll work on her or we'll go work on Anubis guy again. But I will be on tomorrow at 3:30 USA Central Time-ish on the stream here. So, yeah, it went, I was doing, I was going to do it just a straight line of circles to match, like, this one coming up on here. But then I realized that if I made them slowly bigger and linked them together, that would be pretty cool, Bryce. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. And then working out the kind of the figure, like kind of fill on the sides and stuff. But yeah, so that's where she's going. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. My stream is twitch.tv/paintingbig. All one word, no spaces. Yeah, I need to walk the Kiki, get some lunch. Maybe I'll nap early today, depending on how I feel after the Kiki walk, which is half relaxing when you're going out, because she'll walk nicely when we're going away from home. But then, when we turn around to home, she really wants to get home, so then she pulls all the way home, and I've been trying to work with her on not pulling. So, yeah. Oh, well. Anyway, thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in all week. On Monday, we are officially back to, and this is the first time we have been on this guy for a long time, we're back to Genie. We were working on his smoke and his blocking and his colors in general. Was looking at what I was going to do. He's definitely going to get some gold and silver. And we're almost certainly going to do NMM, I think. Just because I want to, I don't know, I want to get, he's got such intricate shapes, right? So yeah, we'll do some gold and silver. Probably. And so gold and silver work well with the dawn kind of air kind of colors, so that would be good. So I still really like his skin tones. I think he's a really neat figure. So, yep. So we'll work on this guy tomorrow. Thanks, Bryce. No, I really like it. That's what's my favorite. Well, not really. I like Wolf Rider Girl too. I've got a lot of those Limbo models, though. I love them. They're super fun. So yeah, come back Monday for Mr. Genie, and we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys around, and have a great weekend. I hope you guys get some relaxation in, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.